lunch, and if not, sometimes you just got to sneak it in where you can. So we have a wonderful program. The good news is sometimes those 1 o'clock programs are tough because you get a little tired after lunch, but this program is phenomenal. So you're not going to have that problem, I promise.
There you go.
If I haven't had the pleasure to meet you, I'm Teresa Busby, and I am fortunate enough to be the Executive Director of the Southwest Mississippi Center for Culture and Learning here at Alcorn State University. Long title. There's a quiz at the end. I'm kidding, not really. So when you walked in, we gave you a handout and we gave you a survey. The surveys are so important to us. We really need and appreciate your input. So at the end, if you would take just a minute to complete that survey and leave it with us, we would be greatly appreciative. Thank you for that. Before I introduce our wonderful guest, I want to say a very special thank you to Dr. Joyce Buckner Brown. She's our Associate Provost and Vice President for Student Success. You can imagine how busy she is, but she took a moment to join us. If you'll give us a little wave, Dr. Buckner Brown. She's fairly new to Alcorn State, so it's good for you to see her face. And also, we have several deans and directors and department chairs. I'm so grateful to y'all for being here. Could y'all just give us a little wave? And thank y'all so much for your support of the center. These faces I always see, so thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then one other very special thank you goes to Mr. Aaron Curtis. He is here at every event recording for us. He also sits on my internal advisory board, so thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you. The title for our program, as you know, is From Slavery to Freedom, the story of the Natchez U.S. colored troops. Some of our speakers are involved with working to develop a monument in Natchez, Mississippi to honor the brave men who literally went from slavery to freedom and bravely fought for that right. This is just an honor for me to have this group with us. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers, but then we're going to have a few words from a very special guest before we kick off the program. First of all, Mr. Barney Schoby, who's in the back of the room. Schoby, I knew that. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Sorry.
I'm German.
Well, I love the name,
yes,
Mr. Schoby. Thank you for that. Mr. Barney Schoby II is a U.S. Park Ranger with 11 years of service. He's a product of the Natchez Adams School District and is a 1988 graduate of North Natchez High School. Mr. Schoby is a proud graduate of Alcorn State University. Go Braves, that's wonderful. Where he earned a BA in History in 2010 and his Master's in Workforce Education in 2015. Mr. Schoby is a member of Mount Zion Baptist Church. He holds affiliations with the Enoch Masonic Lodge, number 18, the U.S. Colored Troop Reenactors of America, which is absolutely wonderful, and Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. He and his wife Pamela have been married for 23 years, congratulations, and have 2 children, Destiny and Taylor. Let's give him a warm Alcorn welcome. Next, on the screen, we have Mrs. Deborah Fountain. She was born during the 1960s, during the Civil Rights era. Though she was still a minor in the 70s when Roots, the miniseries, aired, she, like millions of others in the United States and around the world, was inspired with a deep desire to discover as much as possible about her own family history. She understood it would definitely take time, but she made a promise to herself that one day she would trace her family tree. She kept her promise. In May of 1990, she began her avocational life's pursuit as a genealogical researcher. The research discoveries uncovered through the years for her own family and for others served to inspire her to continue her research journey. As time passed, technological advancements in DNA testing helped open more doors of progress for many in their genealogical research journey, and this is definitely true for Deborah. Having taken her first DNA test in 2013 with Ancestry.com, she was able to connect with various new cousin DNA matches, which led to incredible research breakthroughs. One of Deborah's greatest research discoveries uncovered the fact that she is a descendant with 9 ancestral family members who enlisted and served as U.S. colored troops during the Civil War at Fort McPherson in Natchez, Mississippi. She is indeed a proud descendant of Natchez U.S. colored troops. Y'all, let's give Miss Deborah Fountain a warm round of applause. Mr. Robert Pernell, who's sitting down front, he's a friend of mine, and I'm going to share with you that trying to pull from his resume to give you a brief bio was a work, but it was a work of love, a labor of love, as they would say, because he's a man of many skills, talents, and contributions. I'll share with you that while living in Sacramento, California, he was elected to the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. He was appointed by the Governor of California and confirmed by the California State Senate to serve as the Commissioner for the California Building Standards Commission, and was also appointed by the Governor to serve as the Commissioner of the California Energy Commission. This also required confirmation by the State Senate. So those are huge appointments. He has a vast and successful career in the areas of labor, construction, public utilities, organizational management, community service, and governmental affairs. He holds an Associate of Arts degree in Business Administration and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Communications from California State University. And what's near and dear to my heart is that he is also a veteran of the United States Army. So thank you for your service, Robert. We appreciate that. Throughout his life, he's been actively involved in his communities from California to Natchez, Mississippi. His honors and awards are many, including a Senate resolution that's called the Lifetime of Achievement and Meritorious Service to Humanity Award, an Assembly resolution for exemplary service to the people of the state of California. He's received leadership awards, mayor's awards, and the list goes on. So it's no surprise to find him working so very hard for our communities here in Southwest Mississippi. Please help me give Robert a warm Alcorn welcome. And like I said, we have a very special guest. He did not think he could make it. He has a very busy schedule, which I respect, but I was delighted to see him walk in the building. The mayor of Natchez, Mississippi, who's done wonderful things for all of our communities here in the southwest area of Mississippi, Mayor Dan Gibson is going to make comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Busby. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
It is a real pleasure to be here, and I could not miss this. And things worked out for me to be here, so here I am. I wanted to say thank you for coming out for this program, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of it. I am so excited about this program and my friends who are on this program today. I have known Barney Schoby now for 2-3 years. I've known his dad a lot longer, and you're really in for something wonderful in a few minutes. I have known Deborah Fountain, I feel like, for a long time, even though it's been a brief time. But we met shortly via the internet and via these online meetings, and we met shortly after I became mayor. And then, of course, I've known Mr. Pernell now for several years, and his service, wonderful. I want to just say how I became a part of this. Shortly after I became mayor, I actually began receiving some education about a monument in Washington, D.C. called the Emancipation Monument. And it was dedicated in the year 1876 on the occasion of our nation's centennial there in Washington, D.C. And all of the leaders of the day, including the great Frederick Douglass, were there at that occasion. The monument was dedicated to the great emancipator. And for the next 50 years, if you went to Washington, D.C. in search of a tourist attraction or an attraction or a place to meditate on the history of our country and the fight for freedom, and you were looking for Abraham Lincoln, that's where you would go. It would be 50 years later that they would finally dedicate the Lincoln Memorial. Well, that monument is not there in Washington, D.C. by accident. It was actually funded by freed African Americans, by and large the U.S. colored troops, and research has shown, by and large, the U.S. colored troops from Natchez. Of the budget to build that monument, and Ms. Fontaine will correct me if I'm wrong, but somewhere in those dollars, in the neighborhood of $16,000, $17,000, an exorbitant amount now, 2/3 of that amount actually came from Natchez, from these U.S. colored troops. Pennies, coins, dollars, whatever they could save out of their meager wages, they sent to this fund. Well, it's great history, but it's then that I became interested in the U.S. colored troops. And a historian in Washington, D.C. by the name of Denise Griggs, along with Ms. Fontaine, began educating me. And then through our own community in Natchez, a gentleman by the name of Darrell White, a man that I count as a very dear friend and have known for years, began actually not just educating me, but taking me around Natchez and showing me the sites. It is through that time, and I'd only been mayor just a few months, it is that time that I found out about the connection between the troops, Fort McPherson, Forks of the Road. One of the most moving things to me is the fact that it was these troops, when they were commissioned, who then their first assignment was to break down all of those walls and all of those terrible pens at what for 30 years had been the second largest slave market in the Deep South, second only to New Orleans. And then to take those timbers and repurpose them in the construction of Fort McPherson. It was also then that I found out that the vast majority of African American citizens in Natchez, Adams County, those who have been there for many years, generational ties to our area, that as much as 9% can trace their lineage back to a member of the U.S. colored troops. I want to tell you, I believe that God has a plan. And I believe that He puts us in places for particular reasons, at particular times. And I just thank God that I have been called to be mayor of Natchez at this particular time. When I realized this history existed and yet there was no monument to commemorate these heroes, I became determined to do something about that. And I reached out to friends, and this U.S. Monument Committee, U.S. Colored Troop Monument Committee, has now been working hard for some time. And in fact, we just met yesterday in my office there at City Hall, and I'm excited that they have now selected a site through a very exhaustive and very fair process, a site where they wish to erect this monument. From day one, it's intrigued me, the stories. And as I've learned more, it's been amazing to learn that we actually have the names. And those names are recorded of these 3,000 plus. And I have stayed out of the way. Just, y'all do this. It's not a political thing. It's the right thing. But my only request is that whatever the result is, whatever the monument looks like, whatever the design is, that it include each of these 3,000 plus names. It's important that they be remembered. It is important that all of this be remembered. When I said that I feel very blessed to have been called at this time, I want to tell you a little more about what I mean. You see, I am so grateful to be serving at this time rather than so many years ago, because I myself am a grateful recipient of what has gone before. I started elementary school in the year 1971 in Jackson, and my class was heralded at our graduation in 1983 as the first class to go all the way through, 1 through 12, fully integrated. That opportunity changed my life, and I would not be who I am now had it not been for that experience. I'm a grateful recipient. But also, to be in a position as mayor where you can have the opportunity to do things that haven't been done, and to do things that are long overdue in being done. It's a wonderful blessing. In fact, Monday, we will have a rededication of the monument to the Parchment ordeal. It is the Proud to Take a Stand monument there, and I invite you to come at 5:30. Our former mayor, Darrell Grinnell, had this as a vision and saw it through with the leadership of Mr. Pernell and the committee. And then over 1/3 of the money was committed in less than 1 minute during a meeting with then Governor Phil Bryant, and former Governor Phil Bryant will be there Monday. We have installed new lighting, new landscaping, new signage, and it really will be moving. But one thing that I'm excited is that while that monument is there, we now have another monument on the way. But in addition to that, I'm getting to meet the very people who have been a part of this history. I want you to set your clocks for 8 p.m. Sunday evening. 8 p.m. Sunday evening, February the 27th. Not that there'll be anything on the TV, not that there'll be anything on the radio.
Thank you.
Just when 8 p.m. occurs, take a moment for silent reflection. That will mark the 55th anniversary of the murder of Wallace Jackson Sr. Mr. Jackson was on his way home from his job there at Atlas Tire when a car bomb exploded and he lost his life, leaving behind a wife and 5 children. I've had the pleasure of getting to know his daughter Denise, his son Wallace Jr. In fact, they will be there with us Monday. But it is important that Sunday evening at 8 p.m. we reflect upon that, because we should never forget. So many have given their lives, and so many have done so much, both black and white, so that we could truly realize the freedoms to which we are all entitled. I also want to share this. I'm so grateful to be serving at such a time as this, for such a time as this. Because, don't take it for granted, we in Mississippi are now living the dream. A dream that a gentleman we all know, by way of his leadership and his example, stood at that Lincoln Memorial in August of 1963, where he addressed thousands. And what was a dream then is now becoming a reality in our time now. He said these words, his dream, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. To imagine that we have come so far from 1963, when to Dr. King it was but a dream, so far from 1967, when for the Jackson family, it was, I'm sorry, 1967, for the Jackson family, it was a nightmare, to a time today where truly we are experiencing here in Mississippi a new wave of freedom, equality, justice. This U.S. Colored Troops Monument is another step in that journey. We have a ways to go, don't get me wrong. But the good news is that we're getting there, hand in hand, working together, loving one another, experiencing no longer the war, but rather the peace. And so may God bless you, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. Thank you.
My name is Robert Pernell, and I chair the U.S. Colored Troop Monument Committee. And Dan is pretty modest, but I also chaired the Proud to Take a Stand committee, and that took 2.5 years to do. So when this came up, he invited me to a meeting. So, you know, the mayor, you want to make sure you're there and presentable. And they started talking about this monument for the U.S. Colored Troops. And I'm sitting there, and we had a long that Ms. Fontaine was on the air, and he said, "Well, I know who can do that. Robert, right there, he can do it, he can do it." So, and I say that because, and he's right. I mean, look, there's a lot of history that we don't know about. And I was sharing with someone that I took African American studies in college, like history. I didn't know anything about the Parchman ordeal, which is where they just took people to Parchman prison for coming out of a church. And then the U.S. Colored Troops. So the more we put these monuments up, the more we interact with each other, the more history we're going to learn. And that's not for a negative thing. It is not negative. It is our legacy. And we need to be able to articulate that if someone comes to you. So the committee got started, and you know, in anything of this magnitude, you have to have structure. So we have 5 committees, and we have 5 committee chairs, and then there's the whole committee. So that's the structure. We have the site selection committee that the mayor mentioned, and we toured 19 sites around Natchez, and that committee came up with a site which I think is great. That came to the full committee, and we voted on it. So right now, they've done their job in terms of the site. We also have the Monument Committee, which is going to take a little longer. They have came up with a RFPQ, which is a request for proposal / qualifications. And that document is about 15 pages. And basically what it's going to do is when we send it out, once we run it by the attorney, we send that out, and different firms that do monuments are going to come in, give us their design. And so we right now don't know what it's going to look like, but we know what we want in it. And I think that's the important piece. You know, we wanted to bear the names, we wanted to have the various technology where maybe you can go there and you don't know that much about your ancestry, but you can go there and put in your last name and hit a button and have it. And Ms. Fontaine is helping us with that because she got all of the connections in DC. But so it's going to be an interactive type of a monument. Now, in terms of what it's going to be right now, we don't know. But what we do know is it's going to be the best monument that we could come up with. I mean, and this is not just the committee. So we've had a community meeting, asking them what they think about it. You know, are we going in the right directions and all of that. So this is not, and we want you guys involved. Now, you know, I'm an older gentleman, so my mind is not as fresh as all you guys out here, ladies. And so if you come up with something, let us know. There's a handout that we gave you, how to get in touch with us, how to, there's a 3-step process if you want to trace whether or not you had ancestors back in those days. And it's not just from Natchez, because once the word got out that if you come and join the Union Army, you'll be free. So people, you know, slaves start coming in from all around Natchez, Claiborne County, Jefferson County, you know, not just Adams County. So that's going on, and now people are getting excited. Here's where you can help us, and it's on the sheet. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and da-da-da-da-da. So we're on all of the platforms. We want you to like us and share that. And if you have any questions, there's addresses there that you can call us, or you can write a text, and we'll answer that. And whether it deals with the site, the monument. We also have the History and Research, which Ms. Fontaine chairs that committee. We have the PR committee, who Mr. Roscoe chairs, and he wasn't able to be here, so we're just, but all of those are there. So we want you to reach out to us, help us find these descendants, help us find the descendants of the U.S. colored troops, and we'll do this together. Now, I don't want to just stand up here and take up all the time, because I want to introduce someone who could give you a flavor of what was going on back in those times. But make no mistake about it, we will complete this project. You know, we will complete the mission. I was in, and which Ms. Teresa mentioned, I was in the 82nd Airborne Division. When we had a mission, that mission got completed. We didn't mess around, you know, and all of that. It got completed. Once that was completed, everybody took a breath and relaxed until the next mission. Well, this, to me, is a mission. And we're going to complete it with your help and the grace of God, of course. So that's happening. The other committee we have is the Finance Committee. I like to talk about this because the mayor volunteered me to chair the commission, so I volunteered him to be on the Finance Committee. So he chairs the Finance Committee. Now, and we're doing well. If you go on the website, if you want to donate, you hit a button, you can donate. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to be able to donate. But I got to tell you, this is not going to be a small amount of money. This is going to be a larger endeavor. So we might have to go wherever we need to go, and that's why we're putting it out there so people can know about it. Because at the end of the day, it has to be financed. in some way. And, but again, we need your help. The handout has websites. Please go to those. You have any questions, you can call me, Robert Pernell. My number is 601-334-7225. So any questions you have of any of us, of any of the 5 committees, and I will, before I introduce Mr. Schoby, I'm gonna leave you with this. This is not just Natchez Monument. This is all of our monument we're talking about. That's why we want your input, because it's going to be everybody's, and people going to come from around, just like they're doing with Proud to Take a Stand. You know, they're going to come and see it and recognize and understand and have the story told. One of the things that we're doing with the Proud to Take a Stand monument is actually telling the story. So there's this thing called Time Looper. You put your phone down and get an app. You hit that app, it tells the story about what happened. We want that type of technology with this monument. So if you go there, whether you have you think you have a descendant or not, you should be able to hit something and get the story of what happened. Well, what was going on during that time. And then we just keep that going. So without further ado, I want to bring up Mr. You ready, Barney?
You want me to go, Deborah, or you want me to go? It's on you.
Schoby.
Ms. Fontaine, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Ms. Fontaine before I bring her up. This lady has a lot of knowledge. She'll help you with that as well, but I'm telling you, she has a lot of knowledge about this. She's been to DC several times. She's met the gentleman that's over the, what is that, where you got all of the names of all of the soldiers. She just got information. I'm gonna just introduce her as the Miss Fontaine, the information lady. Miss Fontaine.
Good afternoon. I am so pleased to be with you all today and honored. And if there are veterans present, I know Mr. Pernell, and I'm sure there are perhaps others, I want to say thank you for your service. We always want to honor our veterans, past and present. So, as you have heard, my name is Deborah Fountain, spelled like Fountain, pronounced Fontaine, and I am the History and Research Subcommittee chairperson. As has been mentioned, I have been a genealogist and researcher for more than 30 years. I am a member of the Daughters of the Union Veterans of the United States, and I am a charter member of the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage. My maternal ancestral family has lived in the Natchez district surrounding area over 200 years, and I am very proud to say that. I am the wife of an Army veteran, the sister of a Vietnam Marine veteran, the daughter of a World War II Navy veteran, and the granddaughter of a Spanish-American War veteran. And lastly, very importantly, I am the great-great-granddaughter of a Natchez U.S. colored troop veteran, as well as more than 9 ancestral family members who all enlisted and served in Natchez at Fort McPherson during the Civil War in the U.S. colored troops. Very proud of that. And just a little bit of information about the History and Research Subcommittee members. Our subcommittee is a diverse group of volunteers. The volunteers are from various segments of the community, such as the government or civic sector, the National Park Service, the Natchez Board of Aldermen, and we also have others from the nonprofit and education sector, such as from the Historic Natchez Foundation, as well as members from the Natchez Adams County School District. And lastly, we also have community members and other descendants besides myself. There are other descendants of the Natchez U.S. colored troops. And we're all working together so that we can not only uncover diverse historic stories of those colored troops, but we are desperately trying to reach out to those individuals who are descendants of the colored troops. So I will share with you the who and the what. The who is the Natchez U.S. colored troops, and the what is a monument to be created and erected to honor them. So, how did we get here? Who were those colored troops? Just a couple history notes to answer that question. And I will share my screen now. One moment. Okay, so just for you all, it's probably just a couple notes to refresh your memory. Some of us who are a little older, it takes a little more to refresh our memory. So first off, you will recall that January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. And two things that are important from the Emancipation Proclamation is, number one, it declared all persons held as slaves in the rebellious states to be free. And number two, it announced the acceptance of black men into the Union Army and Navy, enabling the liberated to become liberators. And by the end of the Civil War, roughly 179,000 black men, which was about 10% of the Union Army, served as soldiers in the Army, in the U.S. Army, and another 19,000 or so served in the Navy. The U.S. colored troops were freedom fighters for emancipation, freedom for themselves, their families, and the nation, the United States of America. And on May 22nd, 1863, which was just 5 months later, the War Department issued General Order 143, which officially created the United States Colored Troops. Next up, I'm sorry, clicking too fast. On July 4th, 1863, Vicksburg fell. This decisive victory gave the Union Army control of the Mississippi River. And then on July 13th, just 9 days after the fall of Vicksburg, Union troops arrived in Natchez, and the Union Army headquarters were established at Rosalie Mansion. That was July 13, 1863. The following month, which was August of 1863, U.S. colored troops regiments began to be raised in Natchez. A large number of these black men who enlisted were from Natchez, or many of them had also left plantations in the Natchez district surrounding counties, such as Franklin County, Jefferson County, Wilkerson County, also across the river, Concordia Parish, Tensas Parish, so forth and so on. And they had fled to Natchez and enlisted. During the fall of 1863, the soldiers began work on the construction of a 5-sided earthwork fortification named for General James Birdseye McPherson, and it included the Marine Hospital in the northwest corner. The soldiers, as the mayor discussed earlier, the soldiers received orders to demolish the slave pens at the forks of the road, and they used the wood for the construction of the fort and also the barracks within the fort. So during the Civil War, there were over 3,000 U.S. colored troop soldiers who served in 6 regiments at Fort McPherson. Those regiments were the 6th U.S. Colored Heavy Artillery, as well as the 58th, 70th, 71st, 63rd, and 64th U.S. Colored Infantry regiments. There were also others who served in the Navy who had listed that their birthplace was Natchez. So all of these more than 3,000 men will be honored with their names being listed, every one of them, on the monument. And we are really looking forward to being able to say their name in that manner by listing their names, each and every one of them. And truly, there are among the ranks of those men that will be honored includes a couple of well-known individuals that have great significance. Wilson Brown, you may remember hearing of him. He was born in Natchez. He was a Navy landsman and was one of the 8 African Americans who was awarded the Navy and Marine Medal of Honor during the Civil War. Wilson Brown is buried in the Natchez National Cemetery. And if I am not mistaken, I believe he is the only Medal of Honor person who is interred in the Natchez National Cemetery. So that is truly a great honor that Natchez can be very proud to say that they have a Medal of Honor recipient buried there. Also of note, I know you all are familiar with Richard Wright, the author, but did you know that Richard Wright had both of his grandfathers served during the Civil War? His paternal grandfather, Nathan Wright, served in Natchez in the 58th U.S. Colored Infantry Regiment, and his maternal grandfather, Richard Wilson, alias Richard Vincent, served in the Navy. And there are more stories related to these veterans and also their descendants. And that is our goal, we aim to discover as many stories, rich stories, unearth those stories so that we can tell the whole story and really enlighten not just Natchez, but the rest of this country and the whole world as to those great accomplishments. So we additionally encourage everyone, especially those who live in Natchez and surrounding areas, to check with your families, because we, as the mayor mentioned, believe that perhaps as high as 90% of the individuals of long-standing Black families here in Natchez may be descendants of the Natchez U.S. colored troops, soldiers, and sailors, but many don't know it. So we offer tips for anyone who wants to know if they are descendants. So you will see on the screen that there are many helpful resources, including online resources available for researching your Civil War ancestor. And you can also find more information on our Natchez USCT Monument.com website. There is a Descendants tab page that has all of the steps that you can take to discover your family, to research your family history. You're going to check your home records, family reunion booklets. It could be your family trees. Usually there's someone in the family who is the keeper of family trees. And so you would check to see what are the names of the men in your family who would have been of age to have served during the Civil War. So, and we know the Civil War was during the early 1860s. So those men who were of age to have served, you write their names down, and then you can go to the National Park Service Soldier and Sailors database and plug those names in and see if you discover their name there. And we invite you, all descendants are invited to join the Descendants of Natchez USCT Facebook group. We are a helpful resource group to help you with your continued research. And so lastly, in closing, it was mentioned about the African American Civil War Memorial and Museum, which is in Washington, D.C. And you can see that the monument is pictured. And in the background, those are the names on those black brass plates that you see encircles the monument. There are 209,145 names of the U.S. colored troops who served during the Civil War. And for our Natchez monument that will be erected, we will list every name of the Natchez soldiers, and the Washington, D.C. Museum is providing that official list. And in addition to the list of names, every soldier or sailor's name will also have their plaque number of where their name is found on the DC monument. So when people leave Natchez, they will be able to travel to DC and also locate their ancestors, U.S. colored troops, ancestors' name on the national monument. So we're very pleased that will be a part of the monument.
Thank you, Ms. Fontaine.
Thank you very much.
Give Ms. Fontaine a round of applause.
Hey, Doc. Hey, Doc. Greetings, Alcorn State University. Back on the yard. Back on the yard. It feels good to be back on the yard, especially coming back as an Alcorn graduate. Leaving this university equipped with all of the skills and true character that was needed, given to me by those out there today. Hey, Rob. All of these individuals that I'm shouting out today were an intricate part of my education here at Alcorn, which left me leaving here equipped not only with the character needed to succeed in a world full of chaos and insanity, but also in a world that continues to need change. You're tomorrow's leaders. Now, I gotta hurry up because a lot of people took a lot of time that they weren't supposed to. I'm not a politician, I'm a descendant of one, and I'm not running for anything, so I will make this quick. Again, thank you for receiving me today, Alcorn. It is a pleasure to be back on the yard. 2 degrees off this yard. A lot of sweat, blood, and tears. A lot of good times. Great professors, good friends. And one of the greatest, if not the greatest, I got a young man in Alpha, so I'm not going to disrespect the Divine Nine. But I thank the brothers of the Ada chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated for their support in today's program. Thank you, brothers. Now, with that being said, I'm back on the yard. And I got a presentation for you today that consists of USCT soldiers, which stands for United States Color Troop. I'm a certified USCT reenactor. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a costume. I repeat, this is not a costume. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the blood, sweat, and tears of a race of people that not only fought to free themselves, but to change a nation. Because that Constitution that was written and ratified in 1781, once we became what is called the United States of America, once they said we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator, which means you can't trespass on them. By certain inalienable, you can't trust on them. You cannot trespass on inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When that was written, we were slaves. I'm going to start this thing right now. And as I said before, I'm going to cut this program in half. With that being said, I want you guys to close your eyes. Now, Doc, you just took a hard left in Albuquerque. This thing ain't loaded, and I guarantee you ain't nothing gonna jump off on the yard with my name on it. If I got out of here in them 6 years without trouble, I ain't coming back with nothing. Close your eyes. Now, if you need to be open, close your eyes. All right, while your eyes are closed, I want you to think about this, what I'm finna say. I want you to think about being held in your mother's arms at night. I want you to think about being held by the woman that you love and the man that you cherish in your sleep. I want you to think of all 3 of you huddling in a loving mass of humanity that represents what you know to be as family, the comfort of someone that you love. Keep your eyes closed. Now I want you to think daylight has come and your door is kicked in. Your child is snatched, kicking and screaming from your arms. Your wife is drugged, kicking and screaming from your arms. You are brutally beaten to the ground to watch them leave, and you will never see them again. It ain't nothing you can do about it. Open your eyes. That's slavery. And imagine if that was you. This ain't no costume. This blood, sweat, and tears. Race of people that went to war to change a nation, to address the original sins of an American society, that institution of slavery. The ones that declared your ancestors 3/5 of a human being, said you wasn't a woman. You was property. And as a result of that, in 1863, something happened. Something happened to change the structure of a broken constitution. Y'all wasn't in it. You were a slave. And even if you were free, you couldn't vote. You couldn't hold office. You couldn't own an establishment that sells alcohol or firearm, because you definitely didn't want to get no slaves. Look it up and give them no guns. And you could not own a print shop or a bookstore. It was meant to be that way. The reason why it was meant to be that way is simple. It is because in 1619, the institution of slavery starts in what we call America. 20 Africans on a ship. A Dutch ship drops its anchor in the muddy waters of history. And those 20 people by 1861 are now 4 million people of color that are considered property. Your descendants. Now, in June 7, 1863, all of this changes. 30 miles above you, the city called Vicksburg. This city, Vicksburg, is under siege. The 1863 Emancipation Proclamation declared, if any slave, which is considered contraband, can escape and remove himself from bondage and make it to the Union line, he'll be given a gun and a right to fight for his freedom and save the Constitution. Now it begins. Now it begins. Because you see, these are former slaves that have literally left the inhumanity of terrorism, disenfranchisement, and brutality of a slave environment. Leaving coming not only to accept 3 things. You will not be paid the same as your white counterparts. Will you fight? Sign me up. You will be given the same rancid food you received on that plantation. Will you fight? Sign me up. You will be given the right to shoot the disenfranchised slave owner on the field of battle until he's dead. Will you fight? Sign me up. 1863, June 7, it happens. You see, the Confederate Army, manned by Walker's Texas Rangers, the Louisiana Regiment coming out of Texas to relieve Vicksburg, 1863, June 7th, 35 miles north of us on the Mississippi River, the key to, they said the river in the key to the Lower Mississippi Valley was that of Vicksburg. But you had to cross the West Bank in order to get in Mississippi from Tallulah. As a result of that, Grant, as a supply depot, said there are only the USCT soldiers that can man that arena. Why? They know 2 things. They know the geographical structure of the land. They know how to get in. They know how to get out. And their backs are against the river. They fight or they die. June 7th, it happens. June 7th, the 11th, USCT Army springs into action with one goal and one goal only. To keep Walker's Texas Rangers, I'm not making this up, Walker, that's the guy's name. Walker, Texas Rangers from crossing that river and breaking a 47-day siege. These are former slaves. They don't know how this thing works. They don't know what a ramrod, percussion, cap, powder, bullet, pull, aim, shoot. They don't know. They're slaves, but they're given a gun. And they're given one thing and one reason to fight. There is no tomorrow. There is no negotiation for you. If you're captured, you will be killed. The only thing that you have to fight for is not a constitution, but to make sure that you will never take my child. You will never put your hands on my woman again, and you will never beat me. That's what you're fighting for. Because the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment to the Constitution has not even been ratified yet. June 7th, come daybreak, Texas Walker Rangers. Once Texas Walker Rangers, they come to the rampart and they see a bunch of black soldiers at the rampart. And they say, this is what we're going to do. They won't fight. They don't have the guts nor the glory. So as a result of that, we're going to rush the ramparts. As we rush the ramparts, they're going to run. It didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way. June 7th, when they rushed the ramparts, they said they only got off one shot. After that one shot, that is when they said the USCT soldier became a fighting machine. Why? I don't need to know how this thing fires a projectile. I need to know how to use it as a tool. Why? Because that's all I've ever done. I've worked like hell from daylight to dark, from sunup to sundown, from can to can, through beatings, turmoils, hardships, separation of family. All I had was a tool in my hand. Now that tool is used as a weapon. And as a weapon, once Walker's Texas Rangers breaches the ramparts, they see a bunch of black soldiers, the very first thing they say, "We got it easy. It's a bunch of slaves." But the moment their feet hits the ground, everything changes on that day in Milliken Bend, because when they reach the ramparts, them black folks ain't have nothing but their back to the river, and they see the river behind them. Very first thing they say is, "We ain't going back. We going forward." Walker Texas Rangers stopped, they say, in their second advance, because now they said they saw 3,000 bayonets pointing at them. That'll make you put your brakes on. It is then they said the fact that hand-to-hand fighting became so brutal that the USCT soldier literally was using this bayonet to nail the Confederate traitors to the ground. Walker sees the chaos and the insanity in the USS Choctaw, looks into the embankment and says they're fighting like hell. It is then the USS Choctaw starts bombarding the land. Once the bombardment of the battlefield starts, Walker Texas Rangers says, "We got to get out of here." The ultimate compliment on that day, Walker Texas Ranger retreats back into Texas, never to reach the Mississippi River, never to save Vicksburg from a 47-day siege. And the ultimate compliment, when Walker left the battlefield, they asked him, "Thought this was supposed to be easy. Had a bunch of slaves over there." He looked at him, he said, "Them boys fought like hell. They won today," which leads to an unconditional surrender 2 years later. In the same state the Civil War started in, with the same family. The war started in their front yard and it ended in their living room. USCT soldiers made up over 200,000 men. There was no way possible the United States of America to be a United States of America unless the USCT soldier with 10% bump in that Union Army saved not only America from its original sin, the institution of slavery, but also freed themselves and guaranteed you'll never be able to consider me a second-class citizen, because we got some amendments coming. 13th Amendment, I'll never be a slave. 14th and the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, I got the right to vote, and it better be protected. If the black vote was not so powerful, why is it always under attack? You have power. The right for your vote is to be protected. It is our right to make sure that amendment is protected. And full citizenship, you are not second class to nobody. Under the shades of dry oaks, it is because Blanche K. Bruce, the longest serving second two-term, he served, always had a United States congressman from a slave state until the Jim Crow era of 1898. By 1901, there was nobody else until Adam Clayton Powell in 1940. Your right to vote is precious. And it's because James Lusk Alcorn refused, the government refused to introduce Blanche K. Bruce as a congressional senator and a sergeant of arms. It is therefore we don't say Al go. We don't say Al ways. We say Alcorn. So therefore, always Alcorn. Okay.